Okay, let's not beat around the bush. You see a geoduck for the first time, and we all have the exact same thought. It's unavoidable. And you know what? That's totally fine. In this explainer, we're going to get into the actual science behind this creature's, well, very unique look. So let's just ask the question right out of the gate, because it's why you're here. Why on earth does this clam look so incredibly, and let's be honest, unmistakably like that? Well, the answer is a really cool mix of evolution, pure function, and even a little bit of our own psychology.
All right, first up, the obvious question. To really figure this out, we have to start with the basics. We need to understand what part of the animal we're even looking at, because that long thing sticking out of the shell, it's probably not what your brain is telling you it is.
That long, kind of fleshy, neck-looking thing, it has a proper scientific name. It's a siphon. And really, just understanding what a siphon is and what it does is the first big step to solving this whole mystery. So let's dive into that. Section 2. It's a siphon, actually. Now that we have the name, let's break down how this incredible piece of anatomy actually works. Think of it as the Geoduck's all-in-one multi-tool for just staying alive.
So what is a siphon? At its core, it's basically a biological snorkel, a feeding tube, and a waste disposal system all rolled into one. Lots of mollusks like clams have them, but the Geoduck, it has taken the concept of a siphon and pushed it to an absolutely wild evolutionary extreme.
And what's really fascinating here is that the siphon isn't just one tube. It's actually two tubes that are fused together. You've got the in-current siphon, which sucks in seawater, bringing in all the oxygen and tiny bits of food the Geoduck needs. And then you have the excurrent siphon, which is the exhaust pipe, pushing out all the filtered water and waste. The whole process is brilliantly simple. Water gets pulled in one side. Inside the shell, its gills act like a strainer, grabbing all the good stuff like plankton. Then, everything else, the used water and waste, gets shot right back out the other side. That's called filter feeding, and it's how this guy eats dinner without ever moving. Right. So this leads us to the next big question. Okay, other clams have siphons, we get it, but they don't look like this. So why is the Geoduck siphon so incredibly, almost comically, long? And it all comes down to its lifestyle. See, the Geoduck is the ultimate hermit. It buries itself way down in the sand, sometimes up to a meter. That's more than 3 feet. Its little shell, which protects all its important organs, stays safe and sound way down there. So to be able to reach the surface to eat and breathe, it needed a solution. And evolution's answer was this ridiculously long muscular siphon. Its length isn't a fluke. It's a feature. It's pure survival. Okay, section 3. Completely different blueprints. Now that we know what the siphon is and why it's so long, let's do a direct comparison to, well, to the thing our brains immediately jump to. Because when you look at the biology, you'll see they are built from completely different instruction manuals. I mean, this chart says it all. The function, one is for breathing and eating, the other is for urination and reproduction. The structure, one is just muscular tubes, the other is spongy tissue designed to fill with blood. We're talking about a mollusk versus a mammal. They couldn't be more different. These two parts evolved on completely separate paths from totally different starting points in the animal kingdom. Moving on to section 4, a trick of the eye. So if they are so biologically different, why is the resemblance so strong? Why do our brains make that connection in a split second? This is where we shift from pure biology to the psychology of how we see the world. First off, let's just take a second to appreciate how far apart we are on the tree of life. The last time humans and geoducks shared a relative was something like 600 million years ago. We're talking about some tiny, primitive little blob in the ocean. Since then, our evolutionary journeys have been on completely opposite tracks. So what you're seeing here isn't a sign of a family connection. It's something called a visual analogy. Basically, two completely unrelated things end up looking similar because the shape is just good for a certain job. It's a total coincidence of design, not genetics. So why does it happen? Well, first, a simple tube is just a super efficient shape for moving fluid. So you see it everywhere in nature. Think of an elephant's trunk or a squid's tentacle. Second, our human brains are wired to see patterns, and we have a very strong, very fast bias for recognizing shapes linked to reproduction. And finally, the geoduck just happens to have all the extra features, the crazy length, the wrinkled skin, the way it moves, that make this particular visual connection almost impossible to miss. All right, our final section, the oldest clam around. To wrap this all up, there are a couple more amazing facts about this animal that make its weird shape even more incredible. For all its impressive hardware, the geoduck is an incredibly simple creature. It doesn't really have a brain. Its whole body is pretty much just three things: the shell for protection, the guts inside, and that giant siphon. That's it. It's an animal that's been stripped down to only the absolute essentials for survival. And yet, this super simple, brainless animal is one of the longest living creatures on Earth. Geoducks can live for more than 160 years, just quietly hanging out in their sandy burrows, filtering food, for over a century and a half. So what's the takeaway? That famous feature is just a super specialized siphon for breathing and eating from deep under the sand. The resemblance that makes us all do a double take? It's nothing more than a fantastic coincidence of evolutionary shape. And that really makes you wonder, doesn't it? If a simple clam can evolve such a bizarre, effective, and memorable piece of anatomy, what other amazing evolutionary stories are out there, hiding right in front of us, just waiting for us to notice?